Take a minute.
There it is. Refresh, refresh, refresh. Let me go to the channel page. There we go. We're live and alive, baby. There it is. Refresh, refresh, refresh.
That audio coming in on your side.
Yeah, sorry, that was me. I'm trying to. There it is. Okay, get the share button. Good.
Woo! War Eagle. For anybody
Oh
who
man,
watches
yeah.
this,
If you're in the chat right now, please let us know that you
get
you were
in.
already waiting for that live button.
Get
Pocket Watch, are
in.
you in here?
Get Pocket Watch in here now, ASAP. All right. I'm ready to roll a recording if you are.
Give me two. Give me 2 seconds, just because I want to post the link.
Did have a bit of an issue. I don't know if I can get into Twitter. I might have to use that Auburn.
No, I'm posting on the Twitter and the Instagram. Don't worry about it.
I just mean for my box score that I usually throw up there. I think I locked myself out. Yeah. I can't remember my password and I had to log in for some reason. So we're gonna do a different one.
Having to find my. I need to add Virtual Tumors Corner to my favorites. I have to. I'm always having to scroll down to find it. There it is. Jungle Podcast, Virtual Tumors Corner. Oh yeah.
Oh,
All
this is
right,
gonna
that's
bother
up.
me too much. Can you pull up that you are you able to throw
Jackson just texted us the post game thread. See
well
if you can pull that link up.
I just want
Oh wait,
the
I think that's
score
our
that we
Reddit.
need to use.
The box score. Give me 2 seconds.
If you can be ready to share that whenever we after our little intro or whatever, just share screen.
Which link? You talking about the post game?
I always do the Justin Ferguson one that he posts at the end of the game on his
Yeah,
Twitter.
let me see if I can find that real quick. Ferg, where are you?
Maybe I got locked out.
This is why you join the YouTube live early, friends and family, so you can see all the nuts and bolts of how this podcast comes together. Oh man, there's already some good memes out there. Oh man, 6.5% turnover percentage against Alabama is the program's lowest mark in an SEC game since 2012.
Wow.
I got a CB Analytics link. Let me look at this. That's got
Okay.
minutes. That's got plus minus. That's got everything. You down for that?
Yeah.
All right, hold on. Let me share this. Oh, crap. No, it doesn't want it. There it is. There's my computer. The nuts and bolts of podcasting. Those of you in the YouTube live. This is the fun part. If you don't join the podcast early, you're not going to hear any of this on the actual episode.
Let me know when you got
Wait,
it.
What was Jackson saying? You might as well wait a minute and go live and what?
Go live later.
What?
I passive
We're live
aggressive.
now, Jackson.
Thumbs down to him.
Listen, Jackson loves to tell us how to run our podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Just wait a little longer, East Coast guy. 10 o'clock.
I mean, look, Jackson's on the East Coast too. All right, I hang on. This link is loading. Get this box score to full screen, and we should be good to share. By the way, this is the Tiger Blood cocktail.
Nice, nice. And you can share it
Shout
later
out Red Hot.
if you want.
All right, hold on. Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's full screen when we pull it up. Oh my God, Jalen had 2 blocks tonight too. This is gonna be a tough chat, man.
Fun chat.
All
Good
right,
problem.
ready when you are. Let's go live. Let's
All
record this
right,
podcast.
let's do it. That game took forever. 3, 2. All right, guys. Huge win. Biggest win of the year.
Woo!
Turn
Woo!
Alabama's tail 99-81. splitting the season series with them, pulling into a tie for first place in the SEC. A lot of pressure on this game. Had lost three in a row to Alabama. We hate it. We swept Alabama 2 years ago. They swept us last year, split this year. Big win, had to have it. Shout out to the jungle. Shout out to everybody who camped out last night. Shout out to the atmosphere. And then our 11 players just played a very impressive 40 minutes of basketball. And we're here to talk about it. Ben Young and I again. Ben, this is going to be a gushing podcast. Everybody, just get ready. A lot of positives here to talk about tonight.
I mean, look, if we're gonna gush, I gotta gush about that team that we just played against right now.
Yeah.
The Alabama Crimson Tide. I hate him. Nate Oates, I hate him. But holy cow, Matt! Until there was about 2 minutes left on the clock, did you ever feel safe in this game at all?
No, no, definitely not. You don't
I
feel
sure
safe
didn't.
with them. That's what's kind of scary is like I I've always said it's a respect thing. Like they are terrifying to guard. And you've been on top of this that Alabama is not, they're 60th or something in defensive efficiency. Auburn's one of those few teams that's in the top 20 of both offensive defense. You kind of saw that tonight. I think Auburn had a great offensive game, but Alabama we know has some weaknesses, especially inside. But man, when you're guarding them, I mean, I feel like we did about as good as we could hope to do. And they, because of the free throws down the stretch, but they got to 80. I mean, we held them to 79
Oh
in
yeah,
the first game. So, I mean, they are the leading offense in the SEC for a reason. They're really good.
they're not just the leading offense in the SEC. I think they're one of the. I think they're the number one offense in the country. I saw that graphic put up in the broadcast tonight.
Could be.
I
Tough to
mean,
guard. I mean, tough to guard.
they find the open guy and the open guy hits shots. And Rylan Griffin, another player that had a great game against us in Tuscaloosa, he had a great game against us tonight. I think before he fouled out, he was 4 or 5 from the 3 point line. I mean, it just goes to show you that the analytics have not been lying to us about how good Auburn's defense is. Alabama finished shooting 37% from the floor, 34% from three. They had 36 total rebounds, so not too far off their season average. But you want to talk about a swarming defense tonight? They only had 8 assists. That meant they had to play a lot of ISO ball, which is Mark Sears, probably the SEC Player of the Year strength. Mark Sears finished with 25 points tonight. He definitely got his, but
That's
we
fine.
forced a lot of other players to play outside of their game. And I believe Alabama had only 2 guys foul out, but they had 4 other players finish the game with 4 fouls. Matt,
Yeah.
this was a game that was heavily ruled by whistles. I mean, how do you even prepare for a matchup like that?
Well, I think it got weird. It got weird in the second half. The first half was great basketball. I thought it was great both ways. I didn't feel like it was whistle happy at all. When these teams match up, it's physical, and I personally thought we executed a very similar game plan much better in this game. If Alabama at this point, everybody knows they want threes and layups, nothing else. The shot charts are immaculate when you look at them. It's amazing. Like they're
I'm
so
going to see if I
committed.
can get that pulled up because we want to show that to the people on YouTube for sure.
They're so committed to that identity. And so how do you defend against that? You want to run. I was driving in the car listening to the pregame on the radio, and Coach Chad Pruitt had part of the scout, and he was talking about, obviously you want to run 3-point shooters off 3-point line. That's easy to say, hard to do. But then you also have to almost play this team amoeba defense where you're passing guys off, you're rotating out. You don't care who the matchup is. We just want to get a man on a man. We don't want to leave shooters. And if Mark Sears is going to drive at Janai Broom and score 25, that's fine. We want to limit everybody else. And I thought overall, there were very few breakdowns where we were breaking those rules. And it's such a different way of playing defensive basketball. You're giving up some shots you're giving up some of those slips to the basket for dunks that you're like, I hate that we're giving that up. But you just don't want to give them threes. And in the second half, I would argue, you want to force Alabama into tough twos. You know what else is a tough two in Neville Arena? Going to the free throw line. And we fouled
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot in the second half, but you almost would take that, right? Because they're not able to shoot threes that way.
And again, when you're up by double digits, you're willing to trade possessions. And that's been something that Auburn has been great at all years. If we can get a lead that we can stretch to a couple of possessions, we saw it in the best case scenario against Ole Miss last week, where once you get a lead, you'll trade 2 for 2 because you're going to continue to stay 6 to 8 points ahead. And eventually they're going to start trying to shoot those 3 pointers. And you're going to see that, like, the odds of hitting a 3 pointer are just less. You're happy with 33% from the 3 point line. So that means every third possession, you're going to hit a 3 pointer. So if you're forcing them to shoot threes, they're going to reach a point where they're going 3 times down the floor and only 1 time coming back with a point. I'm going to be ready here in just a second to show you guys this shot chart. Let's do a little screen share here. Oh, Matt, you gotta enable screen sharing so I can show this shot chart off, because this is just wild to see.
All right, try now.
I mean, we saw it in the first matchup for sure that Alabama is incredibly disciplined in the way that they shoot. If you're normally a podcast listener, I would encourage you to go back and watch this section on the YouTube channel, because you can see Alabama took one mid-range jumper. They missed it, which you're going to do on the road. But then look at the rest of their shots. They're all outside of that 3 point arc and right in the lane, right at the basket, at the kill point in the basket. Now look at Auburn over here. You see so many different shots. You see an incredible outside hook here from Chad Baker-Mazara that continued to stretch the lead. I mean, it's a great collection of makes for us. And that's what you're going to see a lot of the time at home. You're going to be able to see teams hit shots that maybe are a little bit on the lower percentage side. But the most important thing is that shot discipline that Alabama has is what keeps them in games. Now, they don't quite have the guns that they had in previous years, which is why, although they played a tough schedule, they've got a lot of losses. All of their losses are to good teams. And guess what? We're another good team that they lost to. Matt, we just picked up our second quad one win in a row.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of opportunities, like you said. Thank you for showing that. I think that's a great reminder of just it's amazing. It really is. I mean, they have such an identity, and it's hard to defend. I I think you have to give a lot of credit to our defense for forcing turnovers, for getting out a lot. So many of the things you and I were texting about before the game that Alabama did to us at home, getting points off turnovers, winning the rebounding battle, winning turnover. We had 1 turnover in the first half, tied a program record for least turn. I think we had 5 in the game or something like that. Just we played really, really well offensively, but the defense to me is what kind of set the tone, especially when, Auburn was up 14 early and Alabama just can throw these runs at you. They eliminated a 14-point first half lead in the first half. They were back ahead of us actually late in the first half, and we extended it back out to 14 before halftime. Which, by the way, funny how things work, right? We were down 14 at halftime in Tuscaloosa. We were up 14 at home in this game. But we, unlike in Tuscaloosa, we kept that gap. We kept the margin. We kept them at bay the whole second half, which was great for all of our hearts, as we watched this game.
How do we do it? It's time to finally turn to MVP discussion. We did it all the way through the front court, baby. Look at those stat lines from Jalen Williams and Janai Broome, our 4 and our 5, number 2 and number 4 in the program, number 1 and number 2 in our hearts on this podcast. Just an incredible night. I mean, Jalen Williams finished with 26 points. He led all scorers. He actually outscored SEC Player of the Year candidate Mark Sears by 1. He outscored Janai Broome, who was one of the most dominant forces on the floor tonight. And he did it kind of quietly, especially in that second half, because we didn't have to lean on him quite as hard.
Well, I mean, it's crazy about Jalen. Like, Jalen had 17 at halftime. And, he made a lot of plays, but it's just hilarious to me that there's something about him that he can do something incredible like that. And it's like, oh, Jalen has 17. No big deal. And then he ended up career high for him. Obviously, as a fan of his game, just really thrilled with I thought he brought it on both ends. I thought he
2 blocks tonight.
Classic, unselfish, multiple blocks. He was great. He helped out on the glass. I think our balanced rebounding is really important when you look at that. 6 for him and Trey and Chad Baker-Mazara, and then 7 from Janai. And then Chris Moore was in on a ton. He had 5 rebounds in 15 minutes. So
we'll talk about Chris Moore.
We team rebounded really well, but I'm getting sidetracked. But Jalen was great. Hit his 3, was really good in those mid-range, close-range 2s, which he's been all year. Just really pleased with how he played. And I hate to you don't ever want to take it for granted, but Jalen's just been really solid most of this year. I know it was rough there for a stretch, and a lot of people said a lot of dumb things, but Jalen's been really good.
Yeah.
But I honestly
Some
feel
former hosts on this podcast.
I feel very similar though as I did the other day in the last game, where when you watch the game though, like doesn't it just feel like Janai Broom is just this gravitational pull for this team? He does so many things so well.
And especially his assist game. I mean, we got to see it uh, reach its zenith. I'm gonna say if we have another game where Janai Broom does more than 7 assists, I will be shocked this year. But we saw, especially early on, him distributing the ball to Jalen Williams inside of the lane. And again, all you're doing now is when somebody's watching Janai and he's able to make a pass to another guy that can score inside, well, now you can't just watch Janai. You've got to keep your eyes everywhere. And we watched again and again when we got Janai Broom in a one-on-one matchup tonight. He roasted the Tide. He roasted him in Tuscaloosa for 25. He roasted him in Neville for 24. And the difference a lot of the way through is that when Jalen Williams plays like this, when Jalen Williams plays like a player of the year, this team seems like they're untouchable. I mean, so many of our wins this season have been by double digits, and all of those have come on the back of these seemingly monster Jalen Williams performances. But we've seen it enough times this year to know that this is in his wheelhouse, even though it's a career high. Jalen Williams scoring 20 points, pulling in 6 rebounds, blocking 2 shots. That shouldn't surprise anyone. Jalen Williams is capable of that, and he's done it again and again in an Auburn uniform.
Well, and if you want to talk about leadership, right? Two guys who maybe at times have been not assertive enough and they've been not vocal enough. And how about, I mean, I can't believe we haven't talked about this, Ben. I mean, I'm just going to give you a minute. Jalen was 9 of 10 at the line. Janai was 9 of 11 at the line. For our big guys to go 18 for 21. I mean, just unbelievable work, especially by Janai in the offseason. He's been so much better at the line. And to watch it tonight, I didn't honestly realize it was that good until I saw the stats, but that's wild.
I'm sorry to our podcast listeners. You got to listen to me breathe real deep for a minute, because holy cow. In a game in which the teams had to shoot a combined 85 free throws, Matt, not just that our front court was immaculate, Auburn as a team hit 40 of 50 free throws. We have been begging for a chance like this because so often, especially last season, we were stuck in free throw shooting games where we only had a couple of options, or we would miss the first half of a 1-and-1 and the other team would get the rebound and we were off to the races. The fact that we were sent to the line that many times, the SEC needs to look at this officiating. This is a horribly officiated game. But man, is it nice to see this team come up with that in the clutch. That it ultimately is what put this game out of reach for Alabama. The fact that every time we went to the line, we were hitting. It was incredible. And Jalen Williams had an incredible night, but I don't think Janai Broom missed a free throw. I've got to go back and look at this.
I think he missed 2.
I think that might have been late because we did ask a lot of Janai in terms of minutes tonight. I think he played 26.
Yeah.
Jalen played the most minutes once again with 31, but that's going to happen when you're the best player on the floor. And I'm sorry, we gotta.
That's going to happen when Chaney Johnson is your best. No offense.
Well, look, the tricky part for about playing an Alabama team is Chaney Johnson's going to be asked to rotate a whole lot, and he's just not there yet. But someone that we did see, and I think maybe is probably our third player in the MVP conversation, someone that we saw make some incredible defensive rotations, especially late when Alabama was looking to make some runs and possibly get back in this game, was our guard and our starting point guard now for 3 games in a row, Trey Donaldson. Mm-hmm. Trey Donaldson brought the energy on defense. And like you were talking about earlier, the way that we decided to respond to Alabama was to rotate nonstop and let them move the ball around as much as they wanted, as long as we were forcing them to take a late look shot clock with a guy in front of them. And Trey Donaldson's ability to close on defense and know where his assignment was made those shots difficult the entire game through. And he finished with 14 points tonight, 6 rebounds. He didn't have as many assists as maybe we would like, but he had 4 assists. And yeah, just an incredible game from Trey Donaldson.
I'm so glad you mentioned it. Trey was incredible. I mean, Trey got us started again. We've seen that a couple games in a row. He settled us in. We were down 6-2 early. He hit a couple of his mid range. Was you were talking about Bama not taking the mid range, man? Trey was
Hmm.
taking that mid range all day. I thought he made great decisions. I thought he was the experienced point guard that you would want in this kind of game. I mean, I can't say enough good things about how well the offense flowed with him on the floor. You got to give Ben credit. He said right before the game, I think he's going to play 23 to 25 minutes. He played 24, and it was extremely effective minutes. And, you talked about his defensive rotations. He is such an athlete. But the interesting thing about watching how we were defending, everybody's got to be so aware of what's happening not with their assignment, and then being
Yep.
able to switch, help, when not to help. It requires a lot of awareness and focus. And I thought all of our guys did an incredible job with that overall. But it started with Trey, and it does really feel like this kind of solidified, like, okay, Trey is kind of the guy. He was also the guy who I thought we did it too late, but we slowed our offense down. We started milking clock I would have done it a few minutes earlier, but we were just
Hmm.
completely under control. And a lot of that's credit to Trey Donaldson.
Well, and I do want to say that there were a lot of folks before this game for whom this game was personal. This game was very clearly personal for Jayla Williams and Janai Broom. They brought their best efforts of the season, no doubt. Bruce Pearl said that this game was personal for him. It was huge for us to split this. Somebody pointed this out somewhere on Twitter that we've lost 5 of the last 7 games to Alabama. And that is true. We were swept last year. 2 years ago, we swept Alabama, but then 2 years before that, we were also swept again. And then we split the year
I think it
prior.
was 2 out of 3
So, yeah. So
because we SEC tournament.
yeah, it's been a tough sled since Nate Oates got to Alabama. And like, honestly, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love that he wants to call our gym a high school gym, and we can talk about how Coleman can't keep the lights on. I love that right now the SEC championship is running through the state of Alabama. And man, I love it when we can beat them, especially at home, especially like this. We gave them a run for their money in Tuscaloosa. It would have been sweet to steal, but man, isn't it sweeter to take it at home and to take it in first place? And I think another key factor to that, I don't know if he gets this high in my MVP discussion, but certainly when you think about how well he guarded Mark Sears, Katie
Mm,
Johnson in the plus minus tonight,
yes,
plus 25. That is
yes.
tied with Janai Broom for one of the most effective players on the floor. And Matt, when you think about how effective our suffocating defense was earlier in the season, it seemed like we were getting 2 or 3 shot clock violations a game. Well, we talked about how important the end of the first half was in the last matchup. And if you recall, against Ole Miss at the end of the first half, we set up a beautiful play to Denver Jones on the wing to hit a 3-pointer and cut the lead to single digits against Ole Miss. Sometimes the momentum from the final play before the half is so crucially important. And Alabama, of course, puts the ball in Mark Sears' hands, and he's going down the court. And like we have all game, like Coach Pearl said in the pregame, we're gonna guard Mark Sears with Katie Johnson and Denver Jones and Trey Donaldson all game. Katie Johnson forced a shot clock violation, or what would have been, because the time ran out before Sears could get a shot off. That was incredible basketball.
That was a great moment, and I mean, I'm so glad you mentioned it, Katie. If this is a great example, right? Like, and honestly, I was going to mention the plus minus. I'm glad you did. We're using a little different stat thing today because I got locked out of Twitter. Um,
Shout
but
out, shout out, Ferg. We miss you.
shout out Ferg, we missed your box score. But no, I like this because Katie was 2 for 10. He was 1 for 7 from two. He did not. He took some bad twos. Okay, but if you watch this game, Katie Johnson played more than Denver Jones for a reason. He was
Mm-hmm.
a menace. He led the charge. That I'm so glad you mentioned that sequence at the end of the first half because to do that to Sears in that spot is unbelievable. Honestly, he had 3 steals. We had 13 steals to their 2 in this game, and Katie was in
Oh,
on.
I hadn't looked at that.
And steals are tricky, right? Because you don't always get the steal. Like the guy who creates the steal doesn't always get the number. And Katie, it just felt like Katie was always in and around the ball. I thought he made some really good transition plays. And he just looked like super athletic, like we know he is. So even though you look at the numbers and you're like, not sure about how good he did. But man, it really did feel like KD Johnson and Janai Broome and Jalen were the three and Trey. Those would be the four that really flashed to me. And the plus 25 while he was on the floor is no surprise.
I mean, again, this is why you come to the Jungle Podcast, because we want to tell you all the time, don't fall in love with the box score. ESPN is a great app. They're not going to tell you the plus minus. And the plus minus, Jackson's not a fan, but Jackson hasn't been on the podcast in a couple of weeks. It's our show now.
Plus minus isn't gospel. It's not a great stat for individual measuring, but
no, but it tells the story of how the team played. Because again, you may not score a ton when you are on offense, but your ability to affect the other team's potential for scoring on defense means that you can. It's exactly what it says. What is your team gaining versus what is your team losing when you're on the floor? And even though KD may not have scored a bunch of points, which helps the team gain points, he prevented Alabama from getting the kind of points that they wanted. And either that's from having to shoot a tough or settle for a tough 3-pointer versus scoring a 2-pointer the other way. And I think the last guy we've got to talk about tonight is Chris Moore. I mean, I said before the game, I thought Chris Moore was gonna go off. He was gonna have a game of his career. He was gonna score 2 buckets in SEC play. I was not correct about that, but I do want to say that Chris Moore assisted on 3 baskets tonight, and we've talked about how important the assist game is to this Auburn team. The ability to distribute the ball and move the ball well, and Chris Moore was actually a part of that tonight in a real way.
He was, and 4 offensive rebounds, by the way.
There you go.
In 15 minutes, he had some great. I mean, he also had a terrible turnover, but he's doing what we need him to do, and I'm fine with Lior getting his rotation or whatever. It's kind of like a thing now in the first half and not really as much in the second, although I think he did play in the second today.
We gave him a second half, but we were up 20 at that point. So I think everybody was like, all right, Bruce, get your favorites in there.
But if Chris Moore can just be a 15 to 18 minute guy, because this is the kind of game where you want a body like Chris Moore on the defensive end, because he is versatile. He is good at keeping the ball in front of him, and he can be a physical rebounder. So I'm glad you called him out. I thought he played really well. And we had to talk about the other guy at the 3 who, Chad Baker-Mazara wasn't necessarily the runaway star of this game, but man, don't take for granted 13 points and 6 rebounds from a guy who only played 20 minutes. He looked the part. He looked like he belonged. I like how he brought, he's not a super physical big guy, but I thought he played really hard. And I thought
he hustled. He hustled because, again, like we talk about rebounds all the time being the hustle stat. He didn't just have 3 defensive rebounds. He had 3 offensive rebounds, which meant, again, we've been begging for this team to have that second level awareness that when a shot goes up, be thinking about what are we going to do if it doesn't go in? This is one of our best offensive teams under Bruce in the last couple of years. So it's okay to see a shot go up and think, oh, that's going to go in. But the guys that are willing to hustle and move inside and go after those balls when we think that they're not going to go in are what gets us those second chance looks. Second chance points killed us in Tuscaloosa, and we absolutely crushed them today. I'm going to try and see if I can find that stat on here. It doesn't have the team stats at the top, which makes it a little more challenging. Once again, shout out Ferg. We love your stats. Matt, talk a little bit more about any of these other players you want to add. We kept Dylan out of foul trouble for the most part. Yeah. He did pick up some silly fouls late in the second half, but again, we saw this team do what it's done all year. They got up double digits and were able to protect that lead in a really big way.
Well, the second time. I still think I don't think people are giving the first half enough credit for how crazy it was. Auburn goes up 14, goes down 2 in the same half, and then back up 14 by the end of the half. That was wild. Crazy. And it says a lot about this team to not get tight in that spot, because when you've blown a 14-point first half lead at home and you go down, there's this, and Alabama's that good. I mean, I think Auburn people need to embrace that. That's a really good win. And I was really impressed with how they responded when they got hit in the mouth. I did want to mention, I thought Aiden hit a great open 3. He was close to hitting another one. I can feel Aiden. He's gonna have a game, y'all.
Wait, hang on, Matt. Before you get too much further into that, we do have somebody that wants to join the pod, and with your permission, I'm gonna bring them in, and we're gonna talk about Aiden Holloway because listen, we talked about this the last time Auburn played Alabama. Aiden Holloway's body language is tough to deal with right now, and it's only because he's being too hard on himself.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the trickiest parts of being a shooter. Like you look at a guy like Steph Curry in the NBA, you look at a guy like Wade Taylor. Even when his team is not doing well, he still thinks he's the baddest guy on the floor. And
Mhm.
Aiden Holloway's lost a little bit of that swagger, and I think that's hurting his ability to contribute in the points column to this team. And we don't necessarily need that from him right now. We've been able to win a lot of games this year without Aiden scoring in double digit points. But what we have to have from Aiden Holloway is his positive energy, his trust in his teammates, his willingness to distribute the ball. And we were kind of missing that just a little bit in this game tonight. We would see him go to the free throw line. He missed a free throw and he's like banging on his head and just getting down on himself. And I wish he would take some of that pressure off of himself to be the star and to trust that he's on a team full of stars. He's on a team with Jalen Williams. He's on a team with Janai Broom. He doesn't have to put that pressure on himself to score 12 points a game and hit all these 3-pointers. I just want him to play within the system, trust his teammates, and win games.
All right, guys. You've waited. I cannot believe this is happening after such a big win. We have a special guest on the pod. Let me introduce you to Mr. Jackson Garrett.
Like
Wait,
Beetlejuice, if you say I'm not on the Zoom enough times or I haven't shown up to podcast enough times, I'll show up in the middle of the night.
let's go.
Let's say we won. I'm over here like working and I'm like, all right, that's enough. He said I'm not on the Zoom enough. I'll get on. I'll get on. You baited me into it. But I love that you brought me in
Yes.
on the Aiden discussion because one, extremely excited, love the quad one win. About said the F word. Screw Bama. I hate them so much. I was gonna be tensed up the entire game. Went up 20, so I didn't have to be tensed up the entire game. But like you said, they could come back at any time, so I was definitely locked in the whole time. But now to be on the negative side, yeah, Aiden's the only guy on this team that has not figured out that he doesn't need to be the guy. Everyone else knows it. All the other guards know we need to give it to Janai. We need to give it to Jalen. They're dominating down low, but he still thinks he needs to be the guy that hits those tough threes that needs to win us the game. And they're not going in. He's like below 20% right now, right?
What? Oh, he's 31 for the year.
But in the SEC play, he's like below 20%, right? That's what they were talking about on the broadcast.
So I would just be curious what shots he took that were trying to win the game.
He had
tonight.
one in particular where he took a hard three that was like off balance, and then
Is
he
that
got
the
a long
one
rebound.
after a turnover?
And he had a hard, I don't know, but he had a hard rebound and then took the three again. It's like, all right, Aiden, like we get, like you had your three. It's fine. I'm fine. And most of the time I'd be cool with that aggressive three, but he just needs to know now this point when Jonai, when Jalen, when Trey, when all the KD even pulls back from that three, when we know we're dominating down low, that's when you pull back. And he's not figured that out yet. And it's fine. He's young. I'm excited. I still think he can turn a corner, but it's time. Like they clearly took him off the starting lineup for a reason. It's because he wasn't quite getting it. And I'm loving watching Trey out there hitting those floaters, hitting good shots, just being solid, distributing the ball. When Aiden's in, he's looking for a shot, and the ball sticks with him. We've had several times during the stretch where the clock went very low, the shot clock, because it would stick with him for a little bit because he's too busy dribbling and not passing. So I know that's a little negative and a big win, but Aiden's the only guy I feel like I was like wanted to shake a little bit. I think everybody else did too, including Janai Broom, who at one point when he looks like he's almost going to get the yips because he's so angry every time he misses a shot, Janai had to pull him aside and be like, "It's all right, young buck. Just hit your free throws. Don't freak out every single time."
That's not what Janai Broom's saying.
That's what it looked like
No,
to me.
they were talking. Hang on, no. They were talking about the next play that was going to come up afterwards.
Janai Broom is telling him keep shooting.
Yeah,
That's what I'm stood. Is that what I said? That like it's all right. They're going to go in. It's fine. Just
you're making the argument that he needs to change how he's playing and be more mindful of other people, which I don't feel like there's even been. I get it. I understand the percentages haven't been there. He has forced some. He makes one horrific turnover a game, but he is our like leading assist guy on the year.
So. Trey's got some weird ones too.
I don't know if we can say a guy with a 3-to-1, 4-to-1 assist to turnover ratio as a freshman is like hogging the ball and not sharing the ball. I don't think that's.
Do you feel like he's regressed in SEC play or no?
I think he's hitting a wall. I think he's being guarded. I think Ryan was dead on the money with that. There's a book out on him until he finishes more at the rim. or until he gets more of that mid-range option. And he
And
is
what
small. He's a
and
small dude.
watching Trey play so well tonight reminded you a little bit of where Aiden's game is lacking. You just don't see Trey dribbling the ball as much as you see Aiden dribbling the ball, and you see Trey finishing with those floaters where Aiden just he's getting swatted every time he goes in there because all he knows how to do is that finger roll move, and it's just not working in SEC play like it wasn't at a conference. Not that it was that great at a conference either. And then
Well,
when the threes aren't going
It was
in,
pretty good.
it's
Hang
tough.
on,
it was
it was
pretty
pretty
good
good
out
in
of
out of
conference.
conference.
No, it was fine.
And
It was fine.
I
He
gotta
still
cut
got
in here.
swatted. He probably got swatted about 50% of
Hang
the
on,
time at a conference.
I gotta cut in here. I gotta cut in here, and I gotta talk about the rest of this team's offensive performance around Aiden. We used to talk about how incredible this second unit was, right? We would have a full rotation, and we'd bring Trey in at point guard. We would bring KD in at the 2. We had Chad Baker Mazar at the 3. We had Chaney Johnson at the 4, and we had Dylan Cardwell at the 5. And for a while, that solid second rotation had some real leadership. They functioned like a fully formed 5-man basketball team right up until about the second or third game in SEC play when we started to see them get exposed a little bit. And part of that is because when we bring this second unit in, there's not as fluid of a movement in the basketball team. And part of that is due to a couple of things. You have to think that Janai Baroum is a little bit better of an ISO player than Dylan Cardwell is. We're not looking to set Dylan Cardwell with his back to the basket. We're going to be moving him around a lot, doing a lot more of that 5 out, which has a whole bunch of guys in rotation. KD Johnson is not nearly the shooter that Denver Jones is. He's our attacking, slashing guy going to the basket. Chad Baker Mazara is a dominant scorer, but he's also a good 3-point shooter at that 3 position, which we absolutely know Chris Moore is not in that first team. And Chaney Johnson is a great defender. He's still a little lost on offense, especially in league play. So now we've moved Aiden into a second unit that doesn't really have a solid identity. And I think that's part of where we're seeing his assist game fall off.
It's interesting because we thought that maybe moving Aiden down there, like we kept CBM in the second rotation, right, for some offense. We thought, all right, he probably deserves to be on started, but we need that second rotation to have a little offense, a leader on there. And then we thought, all right, we moved Aiden down there. All right, maybe we have 2 offense right there because that team was actually scoring pretty well. The defense was great. They're scoring off of their defense a lot of times, but with Trey, they were doing pretty well on offense. Now we move Aiden down there. It's a little more stagnant. I think Trey's maybe just a little better than we thought he was going to be. And I know Trey was your boy, Ben, and he's thriving. And it's really cool to see a backup point guard who had a star recruit get recruited over him stick around, which is not, we're used to some of our guys sticking around, but they are not sticking around like this in college basketball typically. For him to stick around, lose his starting role to start the season, which I'm sure Trey thought he was going to start, that he thought his seniority would probably get him through, and he didn't. Stuck around, and now he's thriving and moved back to the starting role. Stick around, kids. Develop. Get better. Especially on a team like this that's doing well.
This is also where I'd point out that the difference in this move is like 5 minutes a game, maybe.
But I think that's important because we talked about wanting to shorten the lineup in SEC play. We knew that we were not going to be able to split minutes the same way that we are. We knew we were going to have games like today where we need Jalen to play 25, 30 minutes, where we need Janai to play 25, 30 minutes. The question to me was always, who is going to fill out that kind of 3rd or 4th spot in playing that 20 minutes plus a night? I know that we love the idea of a brigade. We heard this brought up in the broadcast tonight, though. When you're playing college basketball, brigades don't win in March. Stars win in March. And I
we're
think
about to figure out if the brigade's going to win, because I'm going to tell you nothing has changed, and we're going to keep doing it the rest of the year.
I listen. 5 minutes is 2 full rotations in the way that this basketball team has worked. When we see Lior Berman only get that 1 first half rotation, he's 3 minutes or less every single game.
Lior doesn't count though. Lior is like the 11th.
No, but Lior is a great bellwether in terms of how we're spending our minutes. And I think the more that we see this team. But it is, because the more that we see this team lean on our top guys, the more that we see them lean on Janai, the more that we see them lean on Jalen, the more that we see them lean on Trey, I think that's how you get guys that can emerge in the clutch. Because we talked a lot about how Ole Miss's guys are playing monster minutes. Alabama's guys are playing monster minutes. Mark Sears plays crazy minutes and still scores 25 points a game.
Yeah, nobody on this team is ever going to do that. That's just not how Bruce is ever going to play. Like, Jalen's going to play more because they don't trust Chaney to play more than 8 or 10 minutes a game.
Did you guys name MVP yet? I feel like you guys skipped over MVP. So it comes down to Jalen and Janai, right? Is there anybody arguing on the Jalen side that wants to? Maybe Matt? Matt is your boy?
I mean, we talked a little bit about it. It just feels, and again, this could just be the Jalen factor. Um, we talked about how you blink and it's like, oh, casually Jalen had 17 at halftime, and you would have
Yeah.
like
The quietest
never.
17 you would have ever thought. When they said
eh,
that on the announcing, I was like, that's such a classic Jalen move to have 15 points and me not
Strong,
realize it until you said it.
strong disagree. Strong disagree there because listen, we talk so much about how this team works in halves, and the idea that we could be up that much at halftime was the key. If we could be up on this Bama team, we could stay out ahead of them because we knew they could score in bunches. You want to ask my vote, even though I'm not the Jalen guy, it is Jalen because that first half was so dominant. We scored 55 points in the first half. We talked about how amazing it was that we scored in the 50s in the second half against Ole Miss to spark an incredible comeback. I think the fact that we were up by double digits against Alabama was the key,
It was the best
especially as
half
this,
of offensive basketball all year for sure.
and especially when you think about the fact that we got into a free throw shooting frenzy at the end. Look at Jalen Williams' free throw numbers: 9 of 10 from the line. I will take that all day, every single day. Jalen Williams led us in scoring. He led us all the way. My vote is for Jalen Williams.
Jackson, I don't know if you listened to our last episode, but like it was a CBM Janai thing, and we were like so close. We were basically giving it to CBM, and then we're like, but when you watch the games, like it just feels like Janai Broome is just his fingerprints are all over both ends
Is
of
it
the floor.
Is it the ISO ball? Is that why it feels like? Because when he scores it so just by himself, we got it in there, and his offensive moves under the basket these days are getting so freaking good. I mean, they were always good, but some of his moves are just so old man basketball, like you playing like at the YMCA at your church. You just had that one guy that's got he's like 6 years old. He doesn't leave the ground, but he's got every move in the book. That's what Jonai feels like. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe Jalen's points are so fluid. They're always within the flow of the game that you almost don't notice. Of course he made that. Of course he hit that shot because it was open. Of course he made that layup because that was a great drive from a great pass. Joe Nizer, all that ISO ball. And you're like, every time, like tense up, like, wow, he took that guy one-on-one, scored. Is that what it is?
I think that's a great point from Jackson, but also the other part of Broome's game is his defense.
Yeah.
Janai Broome leads the SEC, not just in 2-point percentage as an offensive player, but in rebounding. Janai Broome is the best rebounder in the entire SEC.
And he's not playing much. He's not playing nearly what the other guys are that are competing for that stat.
And now when he gets an open three, I'm pretty confident he's going to hit it, right? Like, I don't think he's going to hit it every time, but like, I'm excited for him to take an open three, which is huge for a guy that plays that well at the 5 position. Like, holy crap. Last year, Morehead State, no. And that's what it's so fun to have players stick around and get better and say, like, man, you can tell this guy worked that hard to hit a 3. Like, I give him more benefit. He was 1 of 4 tonight, but like, I'm cool with it. Like, I think he's improved that much. And I'm cheering for him to keep improving.
I think the difference. The shots. Go ahead, sorry, Ben. I think the difference to me is all the other things. Like, you're right. Janai gets a lot of attention in the post, and he gets those one-on-one touches. He's hitting the threes. He's hitting his free. He's 9 for 11 tonight at the line. He's worked so hard on that. But not only the blocks, 5 blocks again in 24 minutes. Like, he's not playing a ton. He's putting up these monster numbers. But more than that, the Alabama matchup stretches him more than any other game we play because of the spread that they are. And I thought he was masterful at defending whoever he was on. Like, he's put in so much work with his versatility defensively, and it's, I think all those little things add up to me. And he is pretty vocal, and he does stand out on the court. And Jalen is just pretty calm the whole time, and so it's interesting, right? Because Jalen was incredible. It's a career high. It's in our biggest game. He showed up. He was aggressive. Jalen ISO'd inside just as much as Janai did tonight, by the way we ran the offense.
Oh, yeah.
But we have not stopped enough yet on this episode to say shout out to the coaches, because we rammed the ball inside with our play calling, especially in the second half. We did not give it a chance for us to get 3 happy when we didn't need to. It was obvious Alabama couldn't handle us inside, and I just give credit to the coaches for controlling that part of the game.
And part of that is the guards listening. I mean, KD wasn't listening as much last year. Some of these other guys, Wendell wasn't listening as much last year. That's why it's a little frustrating to see Aiden take some when I see KD pull up, when I see CBM pull up and say, we're feeding Janai and Jalen. That's what the coach said, and it's working. And we're shooting 26% from 3 while they're shooting 35%, which is just amazing that we were up 20 most of the game, and they were shooting 35% from 3 in Neville, and we were shooting 26%. But
Well,
let
some of
me
that is we jacked some shots up at the end that didn't matter. Janai took 2 heat check threes just to try to stretch the lead and make sure the game was unattainable. That didn't matter. Aiden took a couple of shots late that didn't really matter.
Here's let me go to Reddit here to see if they can solve this argument of Jalen versus Jonai. They might have something that we're missing here. SC War Eagle says Jonai and Jalen were close, but Jonai's 5 blocks put him over the top. Block party, baby. We love that. That's we weren't talking about. I mean, we talked a little bit about his defense, but 5 blocks. Holy crap! I didn't even notice. Somebody else said Jacobs BW says Jonai all the way. AU Bear, classic love AU Bear. He was also mentioning you in the game thread, Ben, when the free throws were going in. He said, Ben must be going nuts right now. I said, oh, yeah, he's going to love it. He says, Jonai, they didn't have an answer for him, but him and Jalen were just a wrecking crew. Love it. Cited, well, what does that say? CID Engineer 42, another engineer from Auburn. You know, we love him. Shocked to see that Jalen really filled out the box score, but I think Jonai played just a bit more physical to earn MVP. Yeah, I think I agree. Keep Cool Coolidge, another classic. Jonai was the guy that they had no answer for. Once again, a lot of the stats other guys got on the box score was due to Jonai dominating, drawing double teams, getting blocks that led to transition, etc., including, I believe, Jalen, who had got an amazing alley-oop pass from Jonai. That one's going to be in the highlights for a long time, I think.
That was beautiful.
And that was so early.
And I thought you were going to talk about the breakaway windmill dunk at the end of the first, or maybe it was the second.
Oh,
I think it was first half.
No,
and,
that's how you end a half, man. That is how you end a half. When last time we let the ball, I heard somebody talking about letting the rope go. We let the rope go on that last one, and that's how we lost the game. We lost in the first half. You can't win a game in the first half, but you can lose a game in the first half. This game, we flipped that table. We hit that dunk. Neville Arena goes nuts. That's what we watch for, right? We want to have fun, and we had fun on that one.
And the best thing about that was, I hope everybody saw it. It's a breakaway, and KD's the only other person in the front court. Jalen does his windmill dunk, which is becoming kind of a normal thing this year, which is crazy. KD runs between Nate Oates and the Alabama bench on the way back. That's what they were checking for. If you saw after the TV time, they're like, did anything happen while KD Johnson?
Said, nothing happened at the time. I was like, okay.
KD Johnson ran
normally
through the Alabama bench in celebration, which was hilarious.
Love it.
Normally, we like to give a shot of the game. Shout out Redmond Vodka, the official spirit of the Auburn Tigers. But tonight, it's just a slow sip and drink of the game.
Chuck
it's
was
Tiger
drinking
blood.
that. Chuck was drinking that Redmont tonight, right? Are we all in agreement that Chuck was deep in some Redmonts on that interview?
It's probably fair.
He was out of pocket on some of that.
So, I mean, so I hear Jackson. I think you're voting for Jay.
So hang on, real quick, because we also have Jay Lowry, who chimed in on Twitter, who sent us a DM, who said, "Listen, Jay will all the way. Career high in points, 6 assists against our biggest rival. The last time he plays them, unless he sees them in the SEC tourney or somehow in the NCAA tournament, that was Jalen Williams' swan song against Alabama, a team he's lost against too many times. Honestly, same thing for Janai Broome. How nice is it to see these guys go out against this Alabama team with a dominant performance and really, really, once again, get a monkey off our back?"
Now, Ben, you haven't worked on a graphic already, right? I think you had to change your graphic up last time.
Yeah, no, this time I'm waiting.
It's
the
empty. Okay.
For everybody else.
Let's go down the votes because I think I might be the tiebreaker here. Ben, your vote is
Jalen Williams.
Matt, drum roll.
I would say Janai Broome.
And for the tiebreaker, I'm going with Lior Berman. No, I'm going with Jonai. Jonai is our MVP on the Jungle Podcast.
It can't go wrong either way. And with those guys combining for 50 points, I mean, just a really incredible game. And it's just so nice to see. You think about Janai was 0-3 against Bama. Trey was 0-3 against Bama. Those guys haven't beaten them. And all of us know from our Auburn experience, like that is, and Bruce, Bruce is incredibly masterful. Pre-game, he lets the cameras in, right? And the last thing he tells his team is that, like, if you want to repay the Auburn people for all their support that they do for you, you know what you do? You go beat Alabama. And he gets that part of it. And it's cool that this group of guys got to experience that, some of them for the first time.
Can we talk 3-point percentage here? So we didn't need it tonight. We dominated down low, which was great, but it is becoming kind of a trend in the SEC, right? Like, what is the number we're looking for this team?
We're not looking for a number with this team. The great thing about this basketball team is we have the ability to score from a lot of different positions. And although you want to have a good percentage overall because it means you're taking smart shots, we've watched this team now for 22 games or 23 games. I think we're 19-4 now, right? Yeah, we've watched this team for 23 games. We know that they're taking smart shots. Sometimes the shots are going to go in, sometimes the shots are not going to go in, particularly when you're still giving a green light to a guy like Aiden. The important thing is, when do those threes fall? I mean, you think about Janai Broom's made 3-pointer tonight. It was at a huge moment that stretched the lead back to 14. It kept the game out of reach. So if you're late in a game, I don't mind that you're not crashing so hard inside and you're going to want to shoot a little bit more from outside, even if they're not going in, because that's going to be the shot the other team's going to give you. When you've been bullying them inside all night, they're going to crowd more guys in the lane. The outside looks are going to be open. The question for me is always, when are we hitting our 3-pointers? Are we hitting them when it matters? And I think tonight, even though the percentage wasn't maybe what we wanted, I think we still hit the threes when it was important.
Are we a good shooting team or no? Like, could we win a game if we have to shoot it? Jonai gets a bad matchup. I mean, that's happened already, right? Jonai gets in a bad matchup. It's just not happening. Jalen's fine. Like, can we win a game with our guards? Is it possible? Are we going to need to? Is Jalen and Jonai just that dominant? Like, can we win the SEC if we don't up these 3-point numbers?
It's a good point. This has not been the improvement that I think we thought it could be in terms of the numbers. I would also argue, though, that Bruce's teams have never shot the best percentages from three. Even that now that 2019 team was elite. We would all agree, right? I mean, it was pretty unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
They were 36, 37, 38 for the year. Nobody really shoots more than like 40. So like 40 is crazy. So I mean, I think you have to keep it in check.
Alabama shoots 40. And here's the crazy thing.
They're insane. They're insane.
Yeah, Alabama is one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country right now, and they're sitting at 17-7, right? Yeah, we played that many games.
So interesting to watch, man. They even just the littlest window. It was so frustrating to see if even we just gave them a foot, they had it. And luckily, we locked in about halfway through the first and started running them off the line. But all it took, man.
But even if you do, they're going to hit some in your face. And like, that's what makes them terrifying to me.
The best thing is, you're right. They're going to hit some in your face. So you better not give them the opportunity to hit ones that aren't in your face, because they're going to hit those too. You know?
And they are unfazed when they miss too. Like, I think for us, like, even us on a fan podcast, right? We're like, if we're missing, it's like, stop shooting, top shooting. They will never stop shooting. I don't know if you heard the number. They shot 48 threes in their last game.
Yeah.
48. And we held them to 26 attempts. So we did a very good job executing the plan. They still hit some. They still hit 35%, which, by the way, that would be my target, Jack. I would say 33 to 35 is my target.
So
and last year, that was what they did.
Last year we had a hard turn at the end of out of conference, early SEC play, where our team basically admitted we cannot hit threes. We are a bad shooting team. I mean, we knew before the season even started, Bruce was bringing it up that we were not good at three, and we had to admit it. And we had to switch our offense into pounding the ball into Jonai and Jalen. It's not time for that yet, but
no.
Like, do you think that should be the strategy going forward? Look at what we did tonight. I mean, good.
In that brief pause there, Trey Donaldson was that guy for us, particularly. Ooh, my connection is unstable. I don't know how much I got cut off there. How's it going? Can you guys hear me right now?
It's a little unstable, but yeah. Maybe just stop sharing your screen.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna stop the screen share and I'm gonna move some stuff around. But if I can bring up this number, Trey Donaldson, he was important for us in the beginning tonight. He's still hitting 40% from three. That is massive.
He's getting our game started. I mean, so did Aiden when he was starting, right? Our point guards seem to be getting those early shots, which is interesting. I don't know what's going on. If that's like planned or if people are just playing good defense on us early and we're having to shoot with them early. We're also shooting a lot of jump shots. Ben was showing the shooting graph, and if you saw Bama's, it's all down low and it's all threes. That's how I like to play personally. We've been shooting a lot of jump shots. They're going in. The only guy I'm like, when it happens, the only guy I'm cool with doing that is CBM. He has this really great jump shot. He's really long, and he's been hitting a lot of them. We hit them all tonight. I don't know if I would want to continue that, but it's not. I guess it's not worth like hounding on, but it's just something to see going forward if we hit those.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, Alabama, nobody does it as well as they do in terms of that approach. That now, again, they've lost 7 games to good teams. But like that approach has holes. I just think it's no fun to play against. I think if you compare it to other sports, there's just certain styles of play that's just like, oh, this sucks. This stinks to play against them. But you're right. Like the thing that's encouraging to me is we're winning by double digits when we win. We're doing it in a lot of different ways, like Ben said. I still think this team is we just came off a road game where we hit 40-something% of our threes. This team has more weapons. I've been calling it our seven guys between, Aiden, Trey, Katie, CBM, Denver, Janai, and Jalen. All those guys can shoot, and I feel comfortable with them taking good shots. So, like, I think that's the difference for me compared to last year, whereas I did not feel good about really anybody. I didn't feel good about Janai outside. I didn't feel good about hardly anybody. Jalen, by the way, is right there with Trey at 40% for the year.
Yeah, I mean, let me talk about our 7 guys, right? Because we love to talk about them. Katie Johnson and Aiden Holloway are 2 of our guys off the bench. They're our worst 3-point shooters. Katie finished last year as our best 3-point shooter on the team. He was the only one that made it above 33%. He's currently at 27.1. Part of that is his volume, and part of that is, Katie is probably the only guy on this team, maybe besides Chad Baker-Mazara, that does not let anything get in his head. Katie doesn't care what his last week's stats were. If he's open, he's going to shoot, and we love that about him. Aiden Holloway is next, 31.6%. Even though he's having a brutal conference play that seems to be a big wake up for his 3-point shooting technique. 31%, 32%, it's not great, but it's not awful, especially when you think about where last year's team was. Now let's go further through the list. Janai Broom, 34%. Denver Jones, 36%. Chad Baker-Mazara, 38.7%. Trey Donaldson, 40.4%. Jalen Williams, 40.4%. We have 3 guys on this team that are shooting better than 36%, which is better than every third or so time you're going down the floor. We have 4. We have a guy shooting 36.8 and a guy shooting 38.7.
Sorry if you already said it, but what's our season average? 3%?
Do we know?
We're at 30. We're right on after this game. We're right at 33.3.
And do we know our SEC 3-point? That was the thing we were texting in the group. We wish we could get like just purely SEC stats, but we got.
Dude, don't give me math.
I got you.
Don't give me math homework on the pod.
Get ready, Jackson. You're about to be destroyed here. Our overall season percentage is 33.333%.
Repeating? Was it repeating, or is it get a 4 eventually?
Okay. Our SEC 3-point percentage. You ready? 33.2%.
Wow, we're losing percentages here. We're losing percentages. We're trending down.
We're so bad. We're so bad from 3. It's not as good as I wanted it to be, because last year we shot 31.5 or something as a team. So like it's a little better, and I think we're more dangerous from 3. It feels like this is a silly thing, but Bill Simmons talks about in his basketball play. Like, sometimes, do you think the ball's going in when a guy shoots? And you talk about that sometimes, Jackson. Like, you feel better with Janai now, which, by the way, there may or may not be people on this podcast asking Janai not to shoot any more threes not too long ago. So let's just take all this.
No, that was me. That was me, because he went 0-13 at one point.
I told everybody it doesn't matter.
I consider at a conference play kind of like a testing period a bit on some things, and then like you got to get serious in SEC play. And if you weren't doing it at a conference, you're not going to do it in SEC. But hey, Janai turned it around, so I'm cool with it. Who do we need? I feel like we have to have a guard that we feel confident in by the end of the year if we really want to make a run in the NCAA or win a ring in the SEC. Are we going to keep pushing that Aiden's going to figure it out? Do we need Aiden to figure it out? Or are we going to keep pushing Denver? Because we saw Denver go off, and it was kind of like, oh, is Denver going to go off? And who is the 3 fingers there? Is that CBM?
Trey Donaldson, baby.
Okay.
Listen, when you want to talk about guard play, you want to talk about it on both ends of the floor. Because even when Aiden has been an assist machine, one of the biggest places that he has been lacking, and Matt has been on this all year, is his defensive rotations. And I think what made the difference tonight was that we got 5 extra minutes from Trey Donaldson, which means we got 5 extra minutes of hard, clean defensive rotation, assignment basketball.
So Trey is the guy. Like, I mean, we've seen it with Denver. We've seen them work.
What does the guy mean, Jackson?
Well,
what
so
do
we've
you mean? What do you mean by the guard?
So
What are you looking for from a guard?
so we saw with Denver early in SEC play, Bruce calling plays for him, saying we need to get Denver going. We need him to hit those threes to be a threat on the outside. And we've seen, I don't know if we've seen it with Aiden necessarily, but he's taken enough shots to be like, all right, if he's going to figure it out, he's going to figure it out there. Trey, we don't run anything for Trey. Like Trey is getting the offense started and he's just doing it really in the flow, which is awesome and exactly what we want. But there will be a time where like late in the game, we need a guard to hit the shot. Is it Trey you're calling the number for? You're running the play for Trey
Yes.
or?
Yes.
For Ben, it is. Matt, who are you calling to play for?
The difference is the way we're playing right now. I just don't think we're going to do a lot of that for anybody. I think it's going to be
end of game. The game's tough.
Yeah.
It's a tight game away. Somebody's got to hit a shot. It's probably going to be one of our guards because our bigs are not playing.
We got to watch this against Alabama, and who did we run the play for? We ran it for Jalen Williams.
Yep.
We brought 3 guards out there on the floor, and the goal was get the ball to Jalen Williams because either they're going to foul him and send him to the line, or Jalen's going to get to hit a 3-pointer. And they didn't count it. They waved it off at the end of the game. But Jalen hit a 3-pointer at the end of that Alabama game that should have made it 78-79.
Well, and I agree with Ben. I think the play would be for Jalen or Janai. So the question is, do you have 3 guys around him who you feel confident in? And the interesting part about this year, and we've been on this probably more than any other podcast, is that's the question. The question is, who are we finishing around those 2 in games? And it's CBM at the 3 for better or for worse. And then at the 2
for better. Yeah, 2, I'm pretty happy with CBM.
Well, I still think on the ball he's a liability defensively, but
I did see him get blown by tonight at one point and just grab the guy, and I was like, oh, okay, that's where Matt's coming from.
But we don't know really with Denver and KD. It kind of depends on the night. So do you feel comfortable with Denver's shooting like 37% from 3? I feel comfortable with him taking an open shot late in the game, and then Trey appears to be taking that. We still haven't really seen him close in a meaningful game that's tight at the end. We saw
at Bama they left Aiden in, and if I would just be shocked if they did that again, honestly, because I was yelling at the TV, why is Aiden still in? He's having a terrible game, and I think that in that moment Bruce was giving him like, we would love for you to turn it on. We would love for you to hit a big shot and get that confidence going. And I think in his head he said we need Aiden to be that guy at the end of the year, so we need him to do it now. And I think after that, he was like, let's see what Trey's up to.
My problem, though, with that whole approach is that I don't know. We have to define what we're talking about. Like, do we think any of these guards are going to become our go-to player in key moments? I don't think so. But does that mean that 3 of them can't be on the floor as good supporting players to hit open shots in key moments? I think that's very possible with this group.
And that's the tricky part, is that our best players are in our front court. Like, whose hands do you really want the ball in when you need a couple? It's Janai and it's Jalen all the way. Jalen is still our one. He's tied as our best 3-point shooter on the team. And Matt, although you are right that it hasn't necessarily been meaningful in the sense that it's translated to wins, we watched Trey Donaldson late shoot us back into a game with Houston and give us a chance to maybe close that gap. We watched Trey Donaldson hit 2 huge shots at the end of the App State game that once again gave us a chance to win. We have seen Trey Donaldson make a steal and get us a lead on the road at Alabama and at Mississippi State. When you talk about guys that aren't afraid of the clutch, on this team, we normally think of KD Johnson because KD Johnson isn't afraid of anything. But when you talk about the ability to execute in the moment, I just think we've seen Trey Donaldson do it again and again and again. And if you want to crave him being the guy that wins us a game with points, I'm ready to see that too.
But Jackson's right.
I think he's the one.
Jackson's right that Trey, the superpower of Trey right now is how good he's playing on both ends. He doesn't need the ball. He doesn't need the ball to be effective. He's played enough at this level to know how to these little intricacies. He's a really good on-ball help defender. He does just a lot of the little things right. And I think I don't know if there's ever going to be a world where he's the guy that Jackson's talking about, which is why I asked him to define what he's talking about. I don't think Trey's that guy, but is he the right guy to run our offense at peak efficiency when we need it? I would agree right now. He is.
No. And that's where I disagree. I think you're right that we haven't seen it yet, but I want to see us in that situation where when you got to have a shot, I want the ball in Trey Donaldson's hands, one-on-one to yak up a 3. I want to see it.
but that's just not how we've been running the offense with him all year. So it would seem weird to me that we would decide in these key moments. You remember Jared Harper, junior year Jared Harper, not early Jared Harper. We would just not run anything. And we would just say, okay, Jared, like make something happen. And I just cannot imagine us doing that with this group that is so good at sharing the ball with the assists and the different weapons we have. I just don't think we're going to have. And Jackson, this is your point, right? We do not have a 5-star, big, bulky NBA prospect wing or guard on this team. We just don't. And if
it feels like so many other SEC teams do have at least that one guy. And to be fair, how many times we watch these games where the other guy on the team just abuses us, scores 25 to 30 points, and they lose. And then good for them, kind of thing. But it is frustrating to be like, these guys are out there. Can they play for us? Like, come win with us, like, why can't we? It's been a while. So, I mean, it's probably just like Samir that we've had like a guard that I'm like excited just see what he would be up to, So it's been a while. I mean, let's get one at some point,
We did see it with Sharif, and honestly, like again, I don't want to think too much about next year because I want to enjoy where we're at and I want to enjoy this win tonight. But like you look at a guy, Todd Pettiford, that's coming in that is a 100% ISO guy. Like if you can get him on a one-on-one situation, he is a guard version of what we have in Janai Broome right now. And although I was so proud of Bruce and this staff and being willing to go out in the offseason and say, look, we know who we have on this team that we're going to build around. We're going to build around Janai Broome and Jalen Williams. And that is exactly what they did. That's the whole point. This team is built around those two dudes being the guy. We don't want to be in a situation where you get to the end of a game and you need to shoot a bad percentage shot to win. We want to be in a situation where we're down one and you can isolate one of these two guys and go at the basket for two.
Here's what Jackson's going to hate, though. This guy is a great player, Pettiford. I'm really excited to watch him play. You want to know his size right now?
Yeah, what?
6'1", 170.
We love our small guards, huh? We're going to have a bunch of them on the team next year, right?
And it's our thing, and it's fine, but I don't even think that's the guy Jackson's talking about. Jackson's talking about, like...
I loved
how tall is Wade Taylor the third?
Good question.
How tall is preseason SEC Player of the Year? I want to hear you guys say it. How tall is he? Preseason SEC Player of the Year, Wade Taylor. Matt says 6'2". Jackson, what do you say?
6 foot.
No idea.
6 feet, 175 pounds as a college junior.
How big is Mark Sears? He's not that big either, right?
No, I think Mark Sears is 6'2". He's a little bit more in the midsize. I'm going to look that up.
6'2", 6'3" is what I'd be aiming for. But
my point is, I think Jackson wants a guard, and you're right, Ben. That's a fair point. I just think I've talked to Jackson a lot about this. I think he's looking for like Isaac Okoro with a great offensive game, which is hard to find. By the way. Hard to find.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, definitely. It feels like if you recruit well enough, you get one every couple years.
Well, if you get one, you could be like Baylor. Like Baylor's got Jacoby Walter. Jacoby Walter ate us up at the beginning of the year and has continued to play on. But look at where Baylor's at. Baylor's struggling to build a team around him because college basketball is just a different animal. Like you're not, as an NBA team, going to go in on a Wednesday night and have a full house in Milwaukee. Or Milwaukee's bad because the Bucks are actually good now. You're not going to go to Memphis and play against the Grizzlies and have 10,000 people screaming down your throat and yelling air ball every time you touch the ball the way you are in college basketball. It's just a different animal.
Yeah, that's why we love college so much more. At least I do. But it just feels like our other than Kentucky, it feels like our other rivals keep getting them every once in a while. It seems like it should have been our turn by now. But that's a long discussion on that one.
We keep winning more than everybody over the last 7 years. I mean, that's the weird thing. I agree with you. We don't get those kind of guys, but Bruce has staked his whole career on this idea that his 10 can be better than your 6 or 7. And for better or for worse, he is loyal to his guys. He doesn't really kick guys out. He doesn't really process players.
And, I don't always pay super hard attention to the other team's star player, like if they were efficient or not. Now, I've been really paying attention to Flan at Ole Miss because I wanted to see how he does when he leaves or whatever. And he left to go be the guy that gets 1,000 shots and gets and he's getting his 20+ points a night, but they are not efficient. So maybe that's just part of the game is that even if we had a guy like that, they're not getting the shots to have those 20+ point nights. But anyways.
Well, and again, that's why you come to the Jungle Podcast, because you want to hear about stuff like efficiency, because in the college game, efficiency just matters. You love these guys that can go and drop 20 and 30 points a game. we got a guy on the roster that was that last year. His name was Denver Jones, and guess what he played for at the end of the year? Jack Squat. Denver Jones came to Auburn, Alabama to win a championship. And tonight they took a big step towards that.
Well, Ben, I'm glad you said my name a couple of times. It was Beetlejuice, so I had to jump on here, but I got to go back to work. I'll probably miss the next two podcasts too, or maybe even more. I've got some cool things going on at work, so hopefully you guys will see it in the next couple months, and it'll justify the fact that I didn't show up to a lot of these. But happy Ben is excited and can come to all the podcasts, and Matt and Storman, he's in Brazil right now, but hopefully he'll be back on soon. War Eagle, guys, I'll let y'all finish up talking SEC play and all that.
War Eagle, Jackson.
See you. Jackson, good to have you on the pod for even a little while, buddy.
See ya.
All right.
I wanted to mention real quick, just shout out to the chat. We had a ton of people. We still got people watching right now. Pocket Watch, which I just want to make a mention of Reverse Rammer Jammer. It's one of my favorite things from my time in Auburn. So love that they got to enjoy that tonight. He said he was there and he had just pulled into Buc-ee's. He was the second commenter on our live video. Chris Thomas has been all over the chat. Miles Nordgren, a lot of our AU Bear, which Jackson mentioned. Just wanted to give those people a shout out. This has been a good, as we would expect after the biggest win of the year, great participation from the audience tonight.
So Matt, we're back in first place. We're fully ring chasing, but boy howdy, does it not get any easier starting right now.
It does not, but we're 8 games to go and we're in first place. I mean, you take that. It's going to take pretty monumental effort, though, for sure, to survive these next few weeks with as few losses as possible.
Yeah, Matt. So right now we're looking at the top of the SEC standings. It is South Carolina at 8-2, Auburn at 8-2, Tennessee at 7-2. They got their bye. I think we're still 2 weeks out from our bye, which makes it a little bit challenging. How many losses can this team take and still legitimately contend?
Probably only like 2 more.
I mean, I think you're right there. Talk about that for a minute, because I'm going to try to figure out the last time we won in Gainesville.
Great. Good luck. Yeah, it feels like it's going to be a 14-4 type year. I mean, honestly, the way Alabama's playing, it's going to be hard to beat them. The way Tennessee's playing right now, it's going to be hard to beat them. South Carolina's won 6 in a row. South Carolina has Vanderbilt this weekend. They're probably going to win another one. So look, we had to have this game to stay in the race and to give ourselves good shot and pull back even with Alabama and kind of rectify our little
beat 2 games. Alabama, because words that we can't say on this podcast.
Yes. So I mean, it's great. We're back in we've controlled our own destiny the whole time, which is what I keep focus. I focus more on that. We control our way. Because literally, Ben, if we win our games, we are the SEC champ. Like, that's what controlling your own destiny means. He's shaking his head at me. That's literally what it means.
Because again, like you say that like, oh yeah, if we win all of our games, of course we're going to win the SEC. But that's the thing in college basketball. You're going to take some losses. You're going to take some losses that you don't expect. And that's what you've got to be prepared for. That's all I'm saying.
We've already done that. And my point is, I would much rather be in a position where we control our destiny to win rather than waiting for Tennessee to lose twice for us to have a chance, or waiting for Alabama to lose twice to come back to us in the standings. Like, that's why tonight was so big. So yeah, at Florida is going to be really tough. Florida's played a lot better this year. They're Todd Golden's doing a great job there. And then we have, by the way, that little pesky South Carolina team coming to Neville next week, which is going to be win or lose at Florida. That becomes a massive game.
Yeah, and again, it's exactly like you were talking about. You want to talk about controlling your own destiny. That's the great part, is if you look at the way the standings are right now, even if we go into Gainesville and we can't do something that Auburn has not been able to do since 1996. I mean, the good news is you and I were both alive the last time Auburn beat Florida in Gainesville, but I think both of us were still in diapers. Even if we lose that game, we do have South Carolina, who will be the leading team in the SEC, coming to Neville Arena, where we are still undefeated. I believe right now we're the only SEC team that is undefeated in conference play at home. Tennessee lost to South Carolina at home. Actually, no, that's not true. Alabama, although they lost to Clemson at home, Alabama has not lost at home in conference, which is why a win there would have been absolutely huge. But we have the opportunity to continue winning at home, which is something that we've talked about all year. If you want to stay in contention, you got to hold serve at home.
Yep.
So even though we've got a couple of tough games coming up, the toughest one, arguably, of the two is going to be in Neville Arena, which I think is a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you put yourself in this position. You just got to try to win every game you can. So it's going to come down to these late game situations. I mean, I hope we can keep winning by double digits against a lot of good teams. That would be great. But I imagine there's going to be some close ones that we're going to have to eke out and find a way to win. And that maybe more than anything is the thing that this team just hasn't had a ton of experience doing. I mean, they can
And
do it. I know they can, but they just
you
haven't done
don't
it.
necessarily need it, because there have been a couple of teams that have won national championships that have torn through the NCAA tournament on the basis of their offensive and defensive efficiency. And that's why, if you're like us, if you've been active online, you've been seeing some folks sharing out some graphics of these are the teams that are able to win a national championship based on the ratings right now. And it's pretty true for the most part. When you think about teams like UConn, teams like Baylor a couple of years ago, they tore through the NCAA tournament and no team got even close to them. And part of that was because they were ranked really highly in their offensive and defensive efficiency. And when things are going right on one end of the floor, they're usually going right on the other end of the floor. And
Yeah.
we're seeing that more from this team, which is part of why I'm back to being fully excited again. I mean, that first half against Ole Miss was scary. I won't lie to you. But the way that this team responded to once again being down on the road, hitting tough shots, hitting shots with a Nike basketball, it gives you that little bit of belief that, like, hey, we're going to get there. We're going to figure this thing out.
And I think maybe the biggest positive after 23 games is like, okay, we've lost four. All four of those were right there for us. I mean, we have not experienced what Alabama just experienced. I'm not saying we won't. We might at Knoxville, we might in other places, but like we have not been blown off the floor, even when we shoot badly, even when we play poorly. So that's really encouraging to me, and I would imagine to our players too. Like it takes, we can win a bunch of different ways, and it takes a lot for us to really get out of a game. Like I think we've shown at this point that we can be pretty dangerous.
I think that was probably the toughest part about watching last year's team, was that if teams found a way to keep the ball away from Janai, and Wendell Green Jr. was not having a great shooting night, we were in real trouble as a team. And this team's strength is that we have some other guys that are willing to answer the bell. We have Trey Donaldson that can get into double digits. We have Denver Jones that can get into double digits. We have Chad Baker Mazara that can get into double digits. And I think after right at the end of the offseason, we had the trial of Jalen Williams. I think after another 20-point performance in SEC play, we can finally say we have another SEC Player of the Year candidate on this team besides Janai Broome. I think Jalen Williams can absolutely be a guy for us. I think he's proved that again and again and again. And I think this team is incredibly well prepared to make a deep run at March.
Pretty wild, man. Like I just looked it up while you were talking. Janai, he's playing incredibly, right? 16.4 points a game in conference play. Jalen's at 15.6, like right there. So Jalen's never going to get the credit from media or hype or from our fan base, even just because it is different. But you're right. Like he is proven that he's very reliable. And I still worry about him in those big moments, the missed free throw at Tuscaloosa. Like I don't know, as a fan of his, I would love to see him have these moments though where he's able to like win us a game late and really continue to blossom. But you're right, the aggressiveness, and I give Jackson credit, you credit. Y'all were on that. Like that is a piece of it. There definitely has been a piece missing. So great win, man. Like great.
It's not even that there was a piece missing. It's just that we've seen him do it. We've seen him turn it on, and it usually takes something special to do it. And I think tonight, this rivalry game, this environment, this idea that like we can pull back into first place, something that Alabama took from us. Jalen Williams went out there and took it right back. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of this team. I'm excited to watch the rest of this year.
Yeah, man. Can't wait. Only 8 games left. And that's what's weird. You get to this point, we're past halfway in SEC play, 8 games left, 4 weeks. It's a 4-week sprint to the end of the regular season. We have a chance. We're solidly in that top 4, which we want to be in. Great spot. I think we were a 4 seed in bracketology going into today before this game. We're still looking great in all the metrics. Lots of reasons to be excited. We really appreciate everybody jumping in and joining the virtual Tumors Corner. I'm sure Tumors had a fun night tonight. The real Tumors did as well. So Ben, any last thoughts on this great win? We love it. We're in first place.
Yeah, listen, enjoy these moments. We may have some chaos that happens to us before the end of the season, but I think we just beat a really good team, and we didn't just beat them, we beat the doors off them. Enjoy these moments. Enjoy beating Bama. Enjoy Auburn being in first place in the SEC.
And how about if you're really pessimistic like me, you think this way. We're one win away from 20 already. 20 is a big number. And then one win away from 500 in SEC play, which is probably good enough to get you in the tournament. So we're ahead of schedule in a lot of those things. And it's because our guys are really good. We're having a good year. And it's still a fun team to watch. We haven't said it the last couple episodes, but we're having fun.
We were pretty fun against Vanderbilt. I had a good time.
Yeah. So this is 3 in a row, right? We lost our 2. We've won 3 in a row since our 2-game losing streak, right?
That's right, baby. 2 in a row.
All right. Well, Florida's going to be tough. You've been on this more than anybody I've heard, and I don't know if people are aware. Like, this is a big win if we can get it in Gainesville for sure.
It's a big win, not just for the SEC season, but it's a big win for our program if we can somehow steal one in Gainesville. I don't know if we can do it, but if any team can do it, I think it's this one.
Making history, that's what it's all about, according to Coach Bruce Pearl. So hopefully we can make some more on Saturday. So great to beat Alabama. Great win. We love to see it. First place. We're rambling at this point because we're just so excited about what we got to watch. Heck of a performance by our guys and Neville Arena. It really was the game in college basketball nationally tonight, and Auburn just really showed out. It was a great program building type win.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Well, we'll be back with you soon. Enjoy the joys of watch Rammer Jammer videos on Twitter. Do what you want to do to celebrate. We'll be back with you soon. War Eagle.
War Eagle, everybody.
Doesn't it feel good? Shout out everybody on YouTube Live. Enjoyed it. Good episode. Good win. If only they could all feel this way, it would be a wonderful world.
Isn't it nice to get that monkey off our back once again? Like, no matter what happens, we pulled even with Bama. We got him at home. Neville stays undefeated for the year so far. And if we do lose in Neville, it ain't to these jokers.
Yes, it's not to them. And now we don't have to be we'd have been 2 games behind them if we lose tonight, right? And it just feels so overwhelming. It was so crucial to just stay in the race from a perception standpoint and from this team. Like, now they can really legitimately be like, okay, we're in first again. We survived our little 2-game losing streak. We're back in it. So,
and it's like you said, the 2 games that we lost were to 2 good teams. And you look around the league and around the NCAA, and teams are losing to good teams all the time.
All the time.
So what's important is, what do we learn from those games? Yeah. And I think if you look at a game like tonight, we learned a lot, and it's a big deal.
Yeah.
YouTube, thanks for joining us.